Yo, Chuck.
Hey, what's going on YouTube? In this video, I'm going to go over memoization. So memoization is just the idea that you can have a function that caches its results. So if you run the function and it returns the same result, you can check your cache and then just pull that cache key, which is going to contain your result, up, and it's much faster than having to do the whole function over again. So let me give you an example. Let's say I have a function called squared, and it's going to take a number and just square it. So we'll say takes a number, return num squared, just like that. So now if I were to call that function and I'll pass in 10, I get 100, as one would expect. Now this is all good and dandy, but if I was to call this function a bunch of times in a row, you can see I'm having to calculate the square root of 10 3 times instead of just doing it once and then pulling from a cache those other times. So let's make a memoized version of squared. I'm going to say const memo squared equals a function. It's going to have a variable called cache, which is just an empty object for now. I'm going to return a function. So I'm going to be using the concept of closures, which I described in another video. But basically what a closure is it's a function that returns a function. And once this parent function has been closed, this new inner function still has access to the parent function, which is closed. Hence the name closure. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, just know that I am going to return, I'm going to put in a number here. I'm going to pass in a number in this function. And first things first, if cache contains the number, then I'm going to want to return cache at number. So if my cache contains whatever number at that key, then I want to return the cache, and I also want to return or console.log the cache, because I want to show you when it actually remembers that, hey, we already have this data. We don't need to perform this operation again. That's just going to waste time and it's not going to be efficient. Okay, so that's the case if it does contain the data in the cache, but if it doesn't, then I want to make a result and say result equals num squared. And then I'm going to push it into my cache. So I'll say cache at num equals result, and then now return result. Okay, so we're going to make another variable and we're going to call this memo squared function. So we'll say const squared with memo equals memo squared. And this is where the concept of closures come to play. Notice how I'm just calling this function memo squared when I'm setting it to this variable right here. Okay, so now if I was to just call this variable, it would not work. So let me do this. It's looking for me basically to use parens and pass a value because I'm inside the memo squared, but I need to execute this function or invoke this function. So what I have to do here is add those parens and then add whatever number it is that I want to square. So let's say 10. And there it is. Here, let me get rid of this. But you can see that it returned 100 like we would expect. Now let's see if we can get our cache to be activated. When we activate our cache, we're going to console.log it. So let's call this or invoke this function again. And this time you can see we've checked our cache. We have the value of 10 squared already, and we're just going to pull that. We don't need to do this big calculation again. And this is going to happen the more we add the same number, because it's already in our cache. If I was to come in here and add, let's say 2 5s, it'll do the same thing. We're utilizing our cache, we're saving time, and it's much faster. So that was a brief explanation of memoization. Just remember, you're utilizing a cache, and then you're utilizing the concept of closure. And if you don't understand closure, please check out the video I have posted from before. It's an excellent explanation, but just know that the idea of a closure is you have access to a function that's already closed. So in this case, memo squared, and then that cache, right? And then you're able to work with that and then return a value to be much faster. So thank you for watching this video, guys. I will see you in the next one.